Jason slammed the door shut. Not a word. Not a glance. His hand hovered on the knob for a moment, and then, with a slow twist, he locked it. The sound of the bolt sliding into place echoed louder than he expected. For a second, he stood still, staring at the door as if it might speak back to him. Inside, his mother stood motionless, her figure half lit by the hallway lamp. She looked older than she had the night before. Her shoulders sagged beneath her faded brown sweater, and her eyes, once strong, always watching, now seemed dull. Tired. Her suitcase sat beside her feet, zipped only halfway, with clothes spilling out the side like it had tried to escape before she could. Jason didn't say goodbye. He didn't say anything. He just turned around, walked down the porch steps, and lit a cigarette, his fingers trembling even though the night wasn't cold. 3 neighbors had seen everything from their porches. One man paused while watering his plants. A woman across the street froze while unlocking her car. Another peered through the blinds, just enough to witness it, not enough to get involved. Nobody said a word. Not even Eleanor, his mother. She stood there, blinking in the silence, then slowly bent down, zipped her suitcase, and walked away. Jason watched her through the window, just barely pulling back the curtain. She didn't cry. She didn't turn around. She just walked, as if she had been waiting for this day her whole life. And that's when everything changed. That night, Jason couldn't sleep. He blamed the whiskey. Then the stress. Then the guilt. But when the clock struck 2:47 a.m., and the sound of slow footsteps echoed across the upstairs hallway, he sat bolt upright. He lived alone now. There was no one upstairs. He waited. The sound stopped. Jason got up, heart pounding, and grabbed the metal flashlight from the drawer. It was old and heavy. He'd bought it years ago during a blackout, never thinking he'd need it for anything more than finding the TV remote under the couch. He walked up the stairs slowly, the floor creaking under every step. When he reached the top, everything was silent. He stood outside the guest bedroom, the one Eleanor used to sleep in. He hadn't touched it since she left. The door was slightly ajar, just the way she used to leave it, saying she didn't like being fully shut in. Jason pushed the door open. The room was exactly the same. Her blanket was still folded at the end of the bed. Her reading glasses were on the nightstand, untouched. Her scent, lavender and something older, softer, still lingered. But on the pillow, right in the center, was a folded piece of paper. Jason froze. He hadn't entered this room in days. And yet the paper hadn't been there before. He stepped inside, every part of him alert. He picked up the paper and unfolded it slowly. It was a note. Handwritten. Just one sentence. You will remember everything you chose to forget. It was his mother's handwriting. No doubt about it.
Jason dropped the note and stumbled back. His hands were clammy. His breath quickened. What did that mean? He ran downstairs and locked every door, every window. Then he poured himself another drink. In the morning, Jason told himself he'd imagined it. Maybe it was an old note. Maybe his memory was playing tricks on him. But when he went back upstairs, the note was gone. Vanished. He searched the room, then the trash, then the hallway, then his own pockets. Nothing. That's when he knew something was wrong. Deeply wrong. Over the next few days, strange things started happening. His phone would ring once, just one sharp ring, and stop. When he checked the call log, there was no record. The TV turned on by itself at night. Only static. Once, he heard someone whisper his name when he was brushing his teeth. It was so close, so clear, that he turned and punched the bathroom wall in panic. But no one was there. And then, the scratching started. At first, he thought it was rats. Or maybe raccoons. His house backed up to some woods. It made sense. Until the scratches started coming from inside his bedroom door. At 3 a.m. Long, slow, deliberate strokes, like fingernails dragging on wood. Jason didn't open the door that night. He just sat on the bed, holding the old flashlight like a weapon. When the sun came up, he checked the door. 5 long, shallow scratches. Fresh. As if someone, or something, had been trying to get in. Jason was a logical man. A former mechanic turned contractor, he didn't believe in ghosts or curses or signs. But none of this made sense. He started going through old boxes, old pictures, old letters, looking for answers. Something. Anything. That's when he found the old notebook. It was tucked away in the attic, inside a plastic container labeled Zmaz Lights. It was his mother's journal. At first, it was filled with harmless things, notes about recipes, dates, old dreams she had. But halfway through the book, the tone changed. March 17th. He doesn't remember. Not the dreams. Not the woods. Not the thing he saw that night. But I do. And I think it's coming back. March 23rd. I tried to tell him. He laughed. Then he yelled. Then he told me to leave. But he doesn't know, it doesn't forget. April 3rd. I think I made it angry. Jason's hands shook as he read. What was she talking about? What didn't he remember? The woods? The dreams? The thing he saw. That night, Jason had another dream. He was 10 years old. He was standing in the woods behind their old house. His mother was calling him. He turned, and there was something behind the trees. Something tall. Watching. He woke up screaming. The clock read 3 a.m. There were scratches on the window. From the inside. The next morning, Jason couldn't take it anymore. He called his cousin Dan, someone who had grown up close to him. They hadn't talked in years. Do you remember anything strange from when we were kids? Jason asked. Silence. Then Dan said. You mean the thing in the woods?
Jason stopped breathing. Dan continued. I didn't think you remembered. You never talked about it. You pretended it never happened. What was it? Jason whispered. I don't know. But your mom said it marked you. That's why she kept you close all these years. She never told me everything, but she was scared, man. Scared like I've never seen a person be. Jason's knees buckled. Marked? He ended the call and stared out the window. In the distance, near the edge of the woods, he saw a figure. Standing still. Not moving. Watching. That night, Jason didn't sleep. He boarded up the windows. Piled furniture against the doors. Kept the lights on. But at 2:58 a.m., the power went out. All of it. The room fell into darkness. Then came the sound. A soft knock. Not at the door. Not at the window. From the inside of the closet. Jason didn't move. Another knock. Louder. Then, a whisper. You will remember everything you chose to forget. Jason grabbed his flashlight and flung the closet door open. Nothing. But taped to the inside wall was the same note. Folded. Waiting. He was shaking as he opened it. But this time, there was something more. A map. Drawn in pencil. Leading straight to the woods behind his house. A red X marked a spot deep inside. Beneath it, one word was written. Come. Jason stared at the map for hours. He sat at the kitchen table, the single flashlight his only source of light. The map was sketched on the back of a torn envelope. It was crude but clear. The drawing showed his house, the tree line, and a winding trail deep into the woods. A red X marked a spot near a crooked stream. Next to it, written in his mother's handwriting, was one word. Come. Jason's chest felt tight. His mind raced. Why had his mother drawn this? Why now? Why had she hidden it? Why did she write that message, the same one he'd heard whispered in the dark? You will remember everything you chose to forget. He picked up the flashlight and the map, walked to the front door, and paused. His hands trembled. It was 3:17 a.m. The same time everything always started. The scratching. The voices. The dreams. And now, the map. He opened the door and stepped outside. The night air was heavy and still. There was no breeze, no sound, just an unnatural silence that made his skin crawl. Even the insects weren't singing. Jason followed the map. Each step felt like a step into something he couldn't explain. As soon as he entered the woods, it was like the air changed, cooler, thicker, more ancient somehow. The trees stretched tall above him, their branches clawing at the sky. His flashlight cut a narrow path through the darkness, but shadows moved at the edge of its beam, shadows that didn't match the trees. He tried to steady his breath. These woods weren't unfamiliar. He'd played here as a child, built forts, climbed trees, gone exploring with his cousin Dan. But tonight, they felt different. Smaller somehow, tighter. Like the trees were listening. He followed the path as drawn. Around the split oak. Past the fallen log. Over the shallow creek. And then, he saw it. The red X. It wasn't marked on the ground, but the spot was unmistakable. A small clearing beneath a twisted willow tree. The grass was shorter, as if something had been resting there. Jason's flashlight flickered. Then the air shifted. It was slight, a coldness, a pressure. Like someone had just walked past him, brushing his shoulder. Jason turned fast. No one. But when he looked back at the tree, something had changed. At the base of the willow, buried half in the dirt, was a metal box. Old. Rusted. With a cracked leather handle. It hadn't been there seconds ago. He hesitated, then dropped to his knees and pulled it out. It wasn't locked. He opened it. Inside were photographs, dozens of them. All of Jason as a child. But not the kind you'd expect. These weren't birthdays or holidays or school pictures. These were strange. One showed him standing in the woods alone, staring at something out of frame, eyes wide with fear. Another showed him sleeping, but taken from above, as if someone had stood over his bed. Another showed a dark shadow behind him, tall, hunched, like a figure with antlers. Jason's stomach flipped. He kept digging. At the bottom of the box was a single cassette tape. Labeled. April 9th, the night it came. Jason's mouth went dry. April 9th. That was his 10th birthday. He didn't remember anything strange from that day, did he? His hands shook as he held the tape. He needed a player. Something to hear it. And suddenly, he needed to get out of those woods. Now. He turned, box in hand, and began walking fast. Then faster. Then running. Branches scraped his arms. His flashlight bounced wildly. He didn't care. Something was behind him. He didn't hear it, but he felt it. A presence. Close. Heavy. Moving fast. He broke through the trees and burst into his yard, lungs burning. He turned. Nothing. But as he stood on the porch, chest heaving, flashlight still flickering, he looked down at the box in his hand. And now there was a second note taped to the top. He hadn't seen it in the clearing. It hadn't been there. Jason peeled it off, hands trembling. It read, "If you open this, everything will return." Jason didn't sleep. He sat in the garage, digging through boxes, searching for the old cassette player. He knew he had one. Somewhere. By sunrise, he found it. It was dusty, battery-powered, but still worked. He loaded the tape and pressed play. At first, static. Then a low hum. Then, his mother's voice. "Jason," she said. Her voice was calm but strained, like she was scared but trying not to show it. "If you're hearing this, it means you found the box. It means it's starting again." A pause. A breath. "I lied to protect you. I tried to take the memory from your mind. You were too young. You were too open. You saw something you weren't supposed to see. Something that sees you back." Another pause. "You went into the woods alone on your 10th birthday. You told me you were going to build a treehouse. But you didn't come back for hours. And when you did, you were different." Jason leaned forward. "You didn't speak for days. You wouldn't eat. You stared at corners. And then the dream started. You said someone was watching. You said he lived in the tree with the broken spine. You called him the backward man." Jason froze. That name, he didn't recognize it, but it stirred something deep and cold in his gut. "You forgot," eventually, his mother said. "I made sure of it. But he never left. He's been waiting. Watching. And now that I'm gone, he thinks you're ready." The tape clicked. Silence. Jason sat there, numb. What was happening to him? Was this all real? Or was he losing his mind? He decided to call Dan again. Dan picked up on the third ring. "Jason? I need to ask you something," Jason said, voice tight. "Did you ever hear of something called the backward man?" Silence. Then Dan whispered, "You remember." Jason's heart stopped. "You said it when we were kids," Dan continued. "That name. You were crying. You told me he had no face. You said he walked backward so he could sneak up behind you without you seeing." Jason nearly dropped the phone. Dan kept talking. "You stopped saying his name after your mom found out. She flipped out, man. Took you to some lady, not a doctor. More like a healer or something. I thought it was all fake. But after that, you changed. You forgot." Jason ended the call. He couldn't breathe. The photos. The dreams. The notes. The tape. It was all real. And he was real. The backward man. That night, the house changed. The walls creaked louder. The lights flickered constantly. The scratching returned, louder, faster. Jason boarded up the guest room, the closets, the windows. But the house wouldn't stop groaning. At 3:03 a.m., every door in the house opened on its own. All at once. Jason screamed and ran to the front porch. But outside, standing in the middle of the yard, was a figure. Not moving. Just watching. Jason couldn't see a face. Or even a shape. Just darkness. Shaped like a man. But wrong. Bent. Off. Like he wasn't standing right. Jason blinked. The figure was closer now. Jason blinked again. Closer still. He ran back inside, locked the door, collapsed to the floor. The lights exploded above him. Then silence. Then, a whisper. Right by his ear. "Do you remember now?" Jason didn't leave the floor for hours. He sat there, legs pulled to his chest, back pressed to the wall, staring at the front door like it might open by itself again. His ears were ringing from the light bulbs shattering above him, but more than that, he couldn't shake the last thing he heard. A voice. Not imagined. Not part of a dream. Right by his ear. Do you remember now? He had felt the breath. The coldness. The intention behind the words. Jason had lived 33 years believing the monsters of his childhood were only nightmares. But now, he couldn't even tell what was real. He used to laugh at people who talked about ghosts and spirits, people who blamed shadows for their guilt or sadness. But now the shadows had a name. The Backward Man. By morning, Jason was pacing the house like a prisoner. Every window was locked. Every blind pulled down. He hadn't eaten since the day before. His mind spun with the photos, the cassette tape, the woods, the name, and most of all, his mother. She'd known. She had hidden all of this. Protected him. Taken the secret to her grave. Jason now believed, knew, he had made a terrible mistake by kicking her out. He thought she was losing her mind. He thought her stories were paranoid delusions. But she had been trying to warn him. And now she was gone. And he was alone. Later that day, Jason sat at his old bedroom desk, digging through a box labeled Mom's Things. It was mostly old letters, books, and drawings. But deep in the box was a journal. Brown leather, soft from age. No title. Just a flower pressed into the front. He opened it. The handwriting was unmistakable, his mother's. But this wasn't a diary. It was a record. A detailed, chilling account of every strange thing Jason had ever done as a child, things he had long forgotten. April 10, 2002, Jason woke up screaming. Said the tree man was standing next to his bed. He kept saying, "Don't let him crawl backward again." April 14, 2002, found Jason outside at 2 a.m., barefoot in the cold. He was staring at the woods, whispering to something I couldn't see. April 17, 2002, Jason told me if he blinks too long, the man steps closer. He asked for tape to keep his eyes open at night. Jason's hand shook as he flipped through the pages. Every entry painted a picture of a frightened, haunted child, himself, and a mother growing more desperate to save him from something no one else believed in. Near the end, one entry stood out. May 2, 2002, I did it. I found her. The woman at the edge of the forest. She gave me a charm. Said it would protect Jason, but only if he never sees him again. Said to bury the memory deep. So I will. He won't remember. He won't remember any of it. Not the woods. Not the name. Not the man. Jason blinked hard. A charm? He flipped the page. Inside, taped to the journal, was a tiny drawstring bag. Old, stitched with red thread. The string was frayed, but the bag was sealed tight. He could feel something small and hard inside. Attached was a note in faded ink. Only break this if it returns. And if it does, run. Jason set the charm down and stared at it. He didn't open it. Not yet. That night, Jason forced himself to try sleeping. He couldn't. He stayed in bed, lights on, every door in the house now tied shut with rope. He had even placed chairs under the doorknobs, like some kind of low-budget horror movie. Still, he didn't feel safe. At 3:17 a.m., it began again. A knock. 3 slow knocks. From inside the closet. Jason sat up, frozen. The closet door was tied shut, a chair under the handle. But the knocking continued. Knock, knock, knock. He stood up, shaking, heart pounding. He picked up the baseball bat he had left by the bed. His hands were sweaty. Stop, he whispered. Please. Then, a voice. You locked her out, now I'm walking in. Jason screamed and ran from the room. He didn't stop until he was outside, gasping, sweat-soaked. The porch light flickered, then turned off. The night was dead still, again. Jason backed away from the house and sat on the front lawn, hugging his knees. He stayed there until sunrise. He couldn't go back inside. He needed help. The next day, Jason drove to visit the only person who might know more. Dan. His cousin. Dan lived about 45 minutes away in a small apartment above a bar. When Jason arrived, he looked like he hadn't slept in weeks. I was wondering when you'd show up, Dan said, opening the door slowly. Come in. The place was small and cluttered. Faded photos hung on the walls. One of them was of the two boys as kids, standing in the woods, arms around each other. Jason stared at it. Do you remember any of it? He asked quietly. Dan nodded slowly. Not all of it. But more than I wanted to. Jason sat on the couch. Who was he? Why did we see him? Dan didn't answer right away. He sat across from Jason, rubbed his face, then finally said. You ever wonder why you stopped going into the woods after that year? Why you never stepped foot past the oak line again? Jason blinked. Dan continued. You did see something, Jay. I was there. Not the whole time, but enough. I followed you that day. Your birthday. You kept talking to someone I couldn't see. You said he was your silent friend. That he walks backwards because he already knows the end. Jason's blood turned cold. Dan's voice dropped to a whisper. You said he lives under the willow tree with the broken spine. And that he feeds on memories. That if you forget him, he'll get hungry. Jason stared at him, horrified. Dan nodded. And then you changed. After your mom took you to that woman. I thought it was some hypnotist or witch or something. But it worked. You forgot. Everything. But I didn't. I just tried to. Jason whispered, what do I do now? Dan leaned forward. Find the woman. The one who gave your mom the charm. She's the only one who ever faced him and lived. Jason frowned. You know who she is? Dan nodded. They called her Old Mara. She lives near the river bend. About 10 miles from here. People say she's dead. Others say she's just hiding. But if she's still alive, she knows how to deal with him. Jason stood. I have to go. Dan grabbed his arm. Not alone. If he's already in, you're not safe anywhere. Jason nodded, heart pounding. But he knew what he had to do. That night, Jason didn't return home. He slept in his car outside a church, engine off, doors locked. The charm bag lay in his lap. He clutched it tightly all night. But even there, the dreams came. In his dream, he was 10 years old again. Standing in the woods. Alone. It was foggy, cold, and silent. He heard a twig snap behind him. He turned, but no one was there. Then he heard it. The backward footsteps. Soft. Slow. Crunching through dead leaves. Moving closer. Jason wanted to run, but his legs wouldn't move. Then, from the mist, he emerged. Tall. Pale. Limbs too long. Head cocked at an unnatural angle. No face, just smooth, blank skin where a face should be. And then, he spoke. But not with words. With memories. Jason saw flashes, his mother holding him at night, singing softly. Her crying in the kitchen. Her whispering to someone in the woods, begging for help. Then a new memory. One he had never seen before. His mother, carrying him through the woods, limp in her arms. Blood on his forehead. A crash. A broken tree. Screaming. And then she said, "Please, take it from him. Please." Jason woke up screaming. Sweat poured down his face. His hands clutched the charm bag so tight it cut into his skin. But the most terrifying part? He remembered that night now. The car crash. The tree. The man in the woods who offered a trade. Jason would forget the pain. But something else would remember for him. The gravel crunched beneath Jason's tires as he turned down the narrow path leading into the woods. Old Mara. The name had echoed in his head all night like a warning and a promise. If anyone could explain what was happening, who he was, what Jason's mother had done, it was her. And if she was still alive, he'd find her. The map Dan gave him was scribbled on the back of an old photo. It wasn't exact, but Dan swore she lived past the river bend, near the base of the hills. She doesn't want to be found, he'd warned. But if he's back, she'll know. The road narrowed into dirt. Trees arched overhead like a tunnel, sunlight barely breaking through. Jason drove slowly, hands gripping the wheel, eyes scanning for movement. Every shadow made him jump. The woods were too quiet. Eventually, the road ended. Jason stepped out of the car. The air was thick with moss and silence. He followed the faint path Dan had described, through the split in the birch trees, past a rusted gate covered in vines, and up a slow incline where the ground grew rocky. He didn't see her cabin until he was nearly on top of it. It blended into the forest, dark wood, a moss-covered roof, smoke rising faintly from the chimney. No mailbox. No signs. Just a wind chime on the porch, made from animal bones and old spoons. Jason swallowed hard. He stepped onto the porch. The wind chime rattled softly. Before he could knock, a voice called out from inside. "Don't knock. Just come in." Jason froze. The voice was raspy but strong. Old, but sharp. He pushed the door open slowly. The cabin was dark. Dusty. Smelled of herbs, smoke, and something older, like earth after a storm. Jars lined the shelves, filled with strange things, feathers, black stones, roots, melted candles, bones. And in the far corner, sitting in a chair wrapped in layers of dark cloth, was a woman. She looked about 90, maybe older. Thin, wrinkled, but her eyes were sharp, unnervingly sharp. One eye was pale white, milky with blindness. The other was deep gray. She smiled faintly. "So. You're the boy who forgot." Jason sat stiffly on a wooden stool, eyes darting around the room. Mara stirred something in a small iron pot over a fire, the smell spicy and bitter. "I don't understand any of this," he said. "My mom, she told you about me?" "She didn't tell me," Mara said without turning. "She begged me. And I warned her the price of taking something like that out of a child." Jason swallowed hard. "What was it? What did I see?" Mara paused. Then she turned and faced him. "You didn't just see him, child. You invited him." Jason blinked. "What? You were wide open back then. Lonely. Curious. Angry. That makes children vulnerable. Especially children who go too deep into places they shouldn't." Jason felt a chill crawl up his spine. "He lives in the in-between," Mara whispered. "Between sleep and waking. Between memory and forgetting. He doesn't walk toward people. He walks away from them. And they follow. Until they're lost." Jason shook his head. "Why would I follow something like that?" "Because he promised to take your pain," she said simply. And children believe what they need to believe. Silence filled the room. Jason stared at the floor. I remember something, he said finally. A crash. My head bleeding. My mom crying. But that night. I don't know what's real. Mara stirred the pot. You were in that crash. Hit your head. Concussed. But something else happened too. You wandered from the crash site. Into the woods. Into his place. And you made a deal. Jason looked up. A deal? Mara nodded. You said yes. You let him take the memory. The pain. And in return, he marked you. Became your echo. He didn't leave. He just waited. Jason clenched his fists. And now he's back. Mara looked at him with both pity and warning. You were protected all these years because your mother carried the debt. She bargained with me. We locked the memory away, used old charms, warded the house. She saw him once, and that was enough for a lifetime. Jason stared at her. Then why is he back now? Mara turned and poured the contents of the pot into a small, carved bowl. The liquid was black and thick. She handed it to him. Because she's gone, she said softly. And so is the protection. Jason didn't take the bowl. What is this? A memory brew, Mara said. Boiled with bloodroot, ash bark, and nightshade. It won't kill you, not if your mind is strong. But it will unlock everything you forgot. And then you'll know why he's coming. Jason hesitated. Will it help me stop him? Mara tilted her head. Nothing can stop him. But understanding him may keep you alive. Jason took the bowl. His hands trembled. He drank. The effect was immediate. The room tilted. The floor folded inward. Shadows slid along the walls like oil. Jason tried to scream, but no sound came. He collapsed backward. And opened his eyes into memory. He was 10. Standing in the woods. The night of the crash. His mother's screams were fading behind him, muffled by the trees. Jason wandered forward, barefoot, blood running down the side of his face. The world was blurry, but something was calling him. Soft. Repeating his name. He found the willow with the crooked trunk. And beneath it, a door. A wooden door in the ground, half covered in moss. He opened it. Inside was a spiral staircase leading down. Jason climbed. At the bottom, a room, round, lit by candlelight. No windows. Walls covered in drawings, eyes, trees, mouths without faces. And standing in the center, tall and thin and wrong, was him. The backward man. His arms hung too low. His spine bent the wrong way. His head was turned completely around. And still, no face. But somehow, Jason knew he was smiling. You hurt, the man said without moving his mouth. Jason nodded. You want it to stop? Jason nodded again. Then give it to me, the man whispered. Give me your pain, and I will hold it for you. All I ask is that you never look for it again. Jason was crying. He stepped forward. And the man embraced him. Jason screamed. And jolted awake on the cabin floor, gasping for air, the taste of ash still in his mouth. Mara was watching him. You made the deal, she said quietly. Jason shook his head. I didn't know. I was just a kid. He doesn't care, Mara said. Deals made in pain are the oldest kind. And now he wants more. Jason sat up. What does he want from me now? Everything, Mara said. Your sanity. Your soul. Your memory is no longer enough. You're grown now. And he's hungry. Jason stood, shaking. What do I do? Mara pointed to the charm bag he still had in his pocket. You break the charm. You invite him in. Jason flinched. Why would I do that? Because if you don't, Mara said, standing slowly, he will keep coming. Stronger. Angrier. And he won't just take you. He'll take everyone near you. He doesn't like being forgotten. Jason's voice cracked. So I let him in and then what? Let him eat me? No, Mara said. You face him. Jason stared. She walked over to the fireplace and lifted a stone from the mantel. Behind it was a mirror, cracked, rimmed with ash. This is a seer's glass, she said. If you burn the charm and stare into this, he will come. And when he does, you must hold your ground. Jason whispered, what happens if I blink? Mara looked at him, eyes sad. Then he will take you. That night, Jason drove back to his house. The sky was dark. Windy. Thunder echoed somewhere far off. He stepped onto the porch, charm in hand. The door was already open. Inside, the air was thick with cold. The lights flickered. The walls whispered. He walked to the living room and placed the cracked mirror on the table. He lit a candle. He held the charm above it. And before he could change his mind, he let it drop. The charm burst into flame. Smoke curled around the mirror. Jason stared into it. And waited. The air shifted. The shadows on the wall stretched. The flame flickered. Then. A reflection. In the mirror. Behind him. He turned. Nothing. He looked again. Closer now. Then he heard it. The backward footsteps. Jason stood still. Closer. Closer. Then. A hand reached from the mirror. And touched his shoulder. The fingers on Jason's shoulder were cold, colder than winter, colder than death. But when he turned, there was no one there. The mirror on the table no longer showed his reflection. Instead, it showed the room behind him, warped, stretched, flickering like a dream half remembered. Jason stumbled back, knocking over the chair. The candle went out. Darkness swallowed the room. And then. The sound. Backwards footsteps. 1 step. 2. 3. Coming closer. He spun in circles, heart pounding, fists raised. Show yourself, he screamed into the dark. But the footsteps didn't stop. And then, in a voice as soft as dust scraping glass, it whispered. You came back. Jason froze. That voice, it wasn't outside. It was inside his head. I never wanted you, he growled. I was just a kid. You made the deal, the voice replied. You wanted to forget. And I obeyed. Jason clutched the edge of the table, trying to steady himself. What did I forget? A pause. Then the mirror rippled. And suddenly, the room around him was gone. Jason found himself standing in the forest again, 10 years old, barefoot, bleeding. But this time, he wasn't alone. The backward man stood at the edge of the trees. His limbs were impossibly long, fingers grazing the forest floor. His head still faced away, but Jason knew, he was staring straight at him. You're not real, Jason whispered. But the woods didn't answer. Only the man moved. He stepped forward, slow, reversed, impossibly smooth. Every footfall echoed backward, like time rewinding. Jason turned to run. But his feet wouldn't move. The forest twisted. The trees bent. The sky above spun like a whirlpool of smoke. And the voice returned. You came to me the night you broke. When no one else came for you, not your father, not the doctors. Not even your mother. You chose to forget. And in return, I waited. Jason screamed, waited for what? To finish the deal. He was thrown backward, violently, out of the vision, into his living room. Gasping. Sweating. Bleeding from his nose. The mirror had shattered. And standing in its place was him. The backward man. Fully real. 7 feet tall. Skin gray and smooth. No eyes. No face. Just a head twisted backward, his body bent in unnatural angles. But this time, Jason didn't scream. He stared. And for the first time, he remembered. It came back like a flood. The night of the crash, Jason hadn't wandered because of a concussion. He had run away, on purpose. His mother had screamed at him in the car. Blamed him for everything, his father leaving, the bills piling up, her own exhaustion. I should have never had you, she'd snapped. You ruined everything. Jason had opened the door and jumped out. The car had swerved and crashed into a tree. He'd run into the forest, crying, bleeding, lost. That's when he found the man. And made the deal. But that wasn't the only secret. Jason looked at the creature now. You didn't just take my pain, he said quietly. You took something else. The man tilted his head, joints cracking. She gave it to me. To save you. Jason stepped forward. My mother gave it to you? The creature's voice wrapped around him like smoke. Her soul. Her memory. Her protection. She traded her life for yours. Every time you forgot, she paid the price. Jason's knees buckled. All the years she'd looked tired, sick, haunted. It wasn't aging. It was the cost. She had carried his pain, piece by piece, through the deal she made with this thing. She gave up everything to protect him, from himself. And what had he done? He'd kicked her out. Called her crazy. Thrown her into the rain. He had destroyed the one person who had saved him. Jason dropped to the floor. I was wrong, he whispered. I didn't know. The backward man stepped closer. She's gone now. And the debt remains. You must repay it. Jason looked up, eyes burning. Take me, then. Take all of it. Just let her go. A pause. Then the man stepped back. She is beyond saving. But the truth can still be told. Jason blinked. What truth? That forgetting is a choice. And remembering is a weapon. Suddenly, the room twisted again, his vision blurred, and he was thrown into another memory. He stood outside the hospital, age 13. His mother was arguing with a doctor. He's forgetting too much, she said desperately. He doesn't even remember his own birthday. His friends. What happened in the woods? The doctor looked unsure. You said it was trauma-induced amnesia. Shouldn't you be grateful he doesn't remember the accident? She leaned close. He didn't forget the accident. He forgot what followed. And whatever it is, it's still near him. I see it in the corners. In the mirrors. The doctor tried to laugh it off. She didn't. I'll pay anyone. I'll give anything. Just, keep him safe. The memory ended. Jason returned to the present, shaking. His mother had tried everything. Jason looked back at the shattered mirror. The backward man was gone. But the air felt charged, like something was unfinished. He heard a knock at the door. Jason jumped. Another knock. Slow. Rhythmic. He crept forward. Opened it. And froze. Standing in the rain was an old woman, soaked, trembling. She looked like his mother, but older. Far older. Eyes distant, but familiar. "Ma," he whispered. She smiled faintly. "I walked all night," she said. "I remembered where you lived. Thought maybe it was time I came home." Jason pulled her into the house, sobbing. "I'm so sorry. I didn't know. I was stupid. I threw you out, Anne." She pressed a finger to his lips. "It wasn't your fault. I made choices I didn't understand." He helped her sit down, wrapped her in blankets. She looked at the broken mirror. Her face changed. "You saw him?" Jason nodded. "I spoke to Mara," he said. "She told me everything." His mother stared into the fire. "I thought I could save you forever," she whispered. "But there's no such thing. Pain always finds its way back." Jason held her hand. "I'm ready now. I'll remember. I'll carry it." She looked into his eyes. And smiled. That night, Jason didn't sleep. He sat by her side, watching over her. And in the mirror across the room, a faint shadow moved. But it didn't step forward. It simply nodded. And vanished. The house was finally quiet. Not the kind of quiet that comes from silence, but a stillness that follows after a long storm, when every window has stopped rattling and every shadow has settled into place. Jason sat by the fireplace, his mother asleep on the couch. Her chest rose and fell slowly beneath the blanket he'd wrapped around her. Her shoes were still wet from the night's walk, but she refused to let him take them off, said she wanted to feel her feet grounded, like an old tree trying to remember the soil it grew from. He watched her sleep. And for the first time in years, he didn't feel anger. Didn't feel shame. Just grief. And love. The two emotions crashed together like waves inside his chest. He remembered everything now, his own pain, the truth of the crash, the creature in the woods, and how his mother had paid for his forgetting with pieces of her own soul. It all made sense now. Her sadness. Her detachment. Her wandering mind and haunting words. She had carried his burden for too long, and in doing so, she had slowly faded from herself. He owed her more than an apology. He owed her his life. Morning came gray and heavy. Jason brewed tea and placed a cup beside her. She was awake now, staring at the fire, eyes hollow. He sat next to her. "You remember everything now, don't you?" she asked quietly. He nodded. "I saw him," he said. "The backward man. And I saw you, when I was 13, begging the doctors to help me. You tried to save me." She smiled faintly. "I didn't try. I did. I made the deal. He offered to take your pain. I said yes." He turned to her. "But why? You didn't know what would happen." Her eyes filled with tears. "Because I was a mother. And you were just a boy, shattered, confused, broken. And I wasn't much older myself, trying to raise you after your father disappeared. You needed saving, and I didn't know any other way." Jason swallowed hard. "I threw you out," he said. "I abandoned you." She touched his hand. "No," she whispered. "You were angry. That's allowed. You didn't know the truth. But now you do. And what you do with that truth, that is what matters." Jason knew what he had to do. There was only one way to end this, to make the debt whole. That night, he returned to the woods. His mother stayed behind, sitting in the doorway, watching him walk barefoot into the trees like a boy retracing his own footprints. The forest was just as he remembered, dark, humming, cold. He carried no flashlight, no phone. Just a piece of broken glass from the mirror. And a truth he was no longer afraid to carry. Deep in the heart of the forest, where the trees grew too close and the light thinned to silver, Jason stopped. "I'm here," he called out. "I came to settle the debt." The wind moved. The shadows lengthened. And then, the backward man appeared. He stepped from the tree line, silent and still. The air bent around him, as though reality didn't quite know what to do with his presence. Jason didn't run. He didn't flinch. "I'm not afraid of you anymore," he said. The creature tilted its head, backward, of course, and whispered with no lips. "Then you are ready." The forest faded. Jason found himself standing in a room of mirrors, dozens, hundreds, all around him. Each mirror showed a different version of himself. Some were him as a child, others a teen. Some sobbing. Some screaming. Some lost in fear. One sat curled in the corner with blood on his face. "You made me forget them," Jason said. "You asked me to," the creature replied. "And your mother paid the price." Jason stepped forward. "I want them back. All of them. The pain. The memories. The guilt. I'll carry it now." A long silence followed. Then the mirrors shattered, all at once. Glass exploded outward, and Jason covered his face, but he didn't feel pain. He felt release. He woke on the forest floor, gasping. The sun was rising. His face was streaked with dirt and tears. But something inside him had shifted. He felt whole. Not healed, not yet. But complete. As though a puzzle had been missing pieces for decades, and now, finally, it formed a picture that made sense. Back home, his mother was still awake, watching the road. She saw him coming through the trees and stood. He collapsed into her arms, and for the first time since he was a child, he cried without shame. They stood like that for a long time, two people no longer hiding from their past, no longer bargaining with shadows. Just a mother and a son, choosing to live with the truth instead of burying it. 1 year later, Jason sat in front of a small group of people at a local community center. He read from a notebook, voice calm but strong. "My name is Jason Morrow. For most of my life, I lived without memory. I forgot the things that hurt me, but I also forgot who I was. I pushed people away. I even kicked my own mother out of my house in a moment of rage." He paused. Looked at the front row. His mother sat there, hands folded, smiling. He continued. "But forgetting doesn't heal. It only hides. I've learned that facing your pain is the only way to be free of it. My mother taught me that, not through words, but through sacrifice. And I almost lost her before I understood." The crowd was silent. Many had tears in their eyes. "Some debts can't be paid with money," he said. "They must be paid with truth. With courage. And with love." He closed the notebook. The crowd clapped. His mother stood and hugged him. And in that moment, Jason didn't see the backward man anymore. Not in mirrors. Not in shadows. Just his own reflection, clear, honest, and whole.